Good evening, everyone. Apopka High School welcomes you to Joe Sterling Gymnasium for Game 14 of the 12th Annual Earl Graham Metro vs. Florida Challenge, the event that puts the reputation of the Orlando Metro Conference on the line against some of the best teams in the greater Central Florida area. In this game, we welcome our guests wearing the black jerseys, visitors on the scoreboard from Seminole High School. They are the Seminoles. And wearing the white jerseys, home on the scoreboard, representing the Orlando Metro Conference. From Wekiva High School, please welcome the Mustangs. Let's meet the teams. We'll begin with our guests from Seminole. And we'll start at guard with 5'9" sophomore, number 1, John Paul Anderson. At guard, 5'8" senior, number 2, Gabriel Sellers. At guard, 6'2" junior, number 4, Josiah Shackelford. At power forward, 6'4" senior, number 14, Tyreek Lewis. And finally for the Seminoles, at forward, 6'6" senior, number 34, Yezel Alvarez. And the coach of the Seminoles in his 9th year at the helm of Seminole is Sylvester Wynn. And now, let's meet the Wekiva High School Mustangs. Starting at guard, 6'1" sophomore, number 1, Darius Livingston. At guard and forward, 6'4" junior, number 21, Vophcy Prophete. At forward and guard, 6'3" senior, number 11, Austin Rowe. At guard, 6'3" senior, number 3, KJ Robinson. And finally for the Mustangs, at forward and center, 6'4" senior, number 0, Malachi Hampton. The head coach of the Mustangs in his 9th year at the helm of Wekiva, Mr. Gersino Lubin. The officials for today's game are from the Central Florida Officials Association. Here in Orlando, we thank them for their dedicated service to our high school athletic programs and join them along with our participating schools, reminding everyone to make great sportsmanship a part of this and every athletic competition. Tonight's game, like all 28 of our games here at the Metro vs. Florida Challenge, is being streamed live on Varsity Sports Network. If you have friends or family back on the other side of Apopka, up in Seminole, or anywhere in the world, and they are not able to join us in person for tonight's game, have them open up the VSN app on their favorite computer, smart TV, or mobile device. It is available on the Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire Stick devices, or from any device at varsitysportsnetwork.org. And we want to welcome those of you who are joining us on any of those options. My name is Mark Barchi. I am actually the voice of the Mustangs, part of the home announcing team for Wekiva High School, and also the media director of the Metro vs. Florida Challenge, as we get the first basket of the game scored by Vophcy Prophete. And I am joined by Neil Fisher of the Apopka Chief and Varsity Sports Network, and we will be taking you through tonight's game. Neil is also my partner in crime over at Wekiva as part of the house team for the Mustangs. So Neil and I are both very familiar with Wekiva, and we both saw Wekiva play last week. And Neil, they looked pretty good to open up season 16.
Yeah, hello to everyone out there. And as Mark just mentioned, a 2-0 start. Of course, both preseason games, so they don't count on the record. But certainly, if you're part of Wekiva Nation, as we get a foul.
And that foul was called against number 1, John Paul Anderson. That's his first and the team's first.
You got to like how the season started. Not only did Wekiva win those games, but they won by 35 and 66 points. playing, just looking sensational in those two games. Of course, Seminole will be much more of a challenge. The regional state semifinals last year, as splash for K.J. Robinson.
3 for K.J. Robinson. That is the Hofstra commit right there.
Yeah.
And he was dazzling, particularly in the first preseason game, but did pretty well in the second as well. But in the first preseason game, he was all over the court. He couldn't miss. It was raining from wherever he shot.
Yeah, so Seminole, to finish my thought, a state finalist 2 years ago, last year a state semifinalist. They'll certainly be much more of a challenge than Pine Ridge and Tohopa-Caliga was during the preseason for Wekiva. Getting back to K.J. Robinson, a transfer from Apopka. As you mentioned, Apopka and Wekiva just 5 miles apart. Their geographical rivalries, if comparable to the college ranks, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, Auburn, Alabama. As we now get the foul.
A double foul is called against number 4, Josiah Shackelford, and against number 21 of the Mustangs, Vophcy Prophete, each of their first personal fouls. It is Wekiva's first and Seminoles' second. And so possession will remain the same way it was before the double foul, and it'll be Seminoles' ball at the sideline.
And so, finishing my thought about Robinson, it's not unusual because the schools are only 5 miles apart as Prophete sticks his hands in,
and
swipes the ball, and draws the foul, to see kids transfer between Apopka and Wekiva, but it's rare that it goes the other way.
Hold called against Gabriel Sellers. That's his first and the team's third. And so, Neil, between K.J. Robinson and Malachi Hampton, obviously those two names, those are your two college commits as we get Vophcy Prophete for 3. And so the Mustangs dropping a couple of trays, and then Malachi Hampton steals 2 more. And Neil, a 10-0 run to start the game against the defending regional champion Seminoles. Coach Lubin's got to be happy with what he's seeing so far as Wekiva clearly in the zone here. And this almost reminds you of the old glory days of Paul Reed as we get Josiah Shackelford putting the Seminoles on the board.
Yeah, you could even go further back to that first team which had our glory with Willie Carmichael in the middle. That was about 10 years ago. But certainly there's a turnover for Wekiva, and this is what we saw last week against Pine Ridge, the very first game of the season. Now Seminole answering.
3 for Josiah Shackelford. And so the Seminoles giving Wekiva a little taste of their own medicine there. Prophete looked like he was tempted, but he's going to go to the paint instead. Got some contact, but it's a no call.
Livingston over to
Malachi Hampton diving, not going to be rewarded for his efforts there. Transition play is tipped away by Robinson.
Yeah, and also since Robinson just made the play, Coach Lubin did mention that he didn't think Robinson was aggressive enough in that second game against Tohopa-Caliga. He still had double digits, but he could have been even more aggressive. They didn't shoot the ball quite as well because of that aggressiveness. And again, as now they force another turnover.
Well, that wasn't even forced. That was Shackelford and Lewis zigged when he should have zagged. And so Wekiva gets a freebie there.
Third turnover by Seminole. But, of course, being a point guard in general, the play's going to go through Robinson, and his aggressiveness is going to dictate so much as that ball skied and cleared by Sellers. But in particular, Robinson just has that specific skill set, and the way he fits in with the returning Wekiva players, it's going to be even more so.
Yeah, and of course, Seminole is a team, you mentioned, Neil, the last 2 years in particular. They have had great success. They had 19 wins, but 19-20 win seasons. Very much the norm for them.
19-9 last season.
And they are a team that is kind of a perennial name that you look for in those postseason brackets as we get a jumper from the key from Yeziel Alvarez. Wekiva, on the other hand, has been hot and cold, and after Paul Reed graduated, they had kind of a spell there as we get a Malachi Hampton on the putback. Wekiva has been they haven't been a poor team, but they have been kind of a middling average team.
Well, they had the 3-win season the year after, actually it was 2 years after they went to the state final with Paul Reed. Of course, Jeremy Johnson and Tyrone Perry, the other big names. But since then, they have been steadily building a 4-year period. Last year, they went 17-11. not only made the playoffs, but won a upset Melbourne on the road, made to the regional semifinals, the round of 16.
Held ball, possession, Seminoles, and we have some substitutions. Isaiah Bannister-Doucette, Kerry Davis, and Avia Charles come in for the Mustangs. So Isaiah Bannister there is normally a member of the starting lineup, and he sits out the first half of the first quarter tonight.
Yeah, twisted his ankle during the practice after that second game against Tahopa Kaliga. And so Coach Lubin and Isaiah himself looking to, I guess say, ease his way back into playing action. So also want to bring up Coach Wynn, Seminoles High School coach, did mention that he has 3 of his players in his main rotation. No dice on that. Ripping the rebound down, doing Windex work is Alvarez, and now Seminole trying to settle themselves down. The quick tray and draining the rain.
Jaquan Ross for 3. So Wekiva there just gave Seminole too many chances, and eventually, if you give them that many cracks at the basket, they're going to connect at some point.
Now the long baseball pass setting up was Robinson, unable to get that, and now Seminole, after falling behind 10-0, can tie this game or even take the lead. They won't. No dice. Slides off that rim, a high rebound, out of bounds after the battle, and Wekiva possession. Seminole, in addition to their 3 basketball-only players being out, also are waiting for 2 of their football players to return. They'll come back next season. Of course, Coach Wynn said, he felt like when everybody was back, as Bannister spots up, and
Bannister to Kerry Davis.
Kerry Davis. Wynn did say he thinks that they'll be back where they were before. So I guess you could say it's just treading water right now. And quite frankly, if this is what treading water is, I'd hate to be a Seminole County opponent. As Davis with the sweep.
Kerry Davis pounds the paint for 2.
16-10. So Wekiva now on a 6-0 run after the lead was a 4-0 run after the lead was cut down to a deuce. And Seminole, quick passing, tic-tac-toe passing.
Tyreek Lewis to Yesiel Alvarez.
Inside.
Malachi Hampton on the pass.
And so we
from Kerry Davis.
And so, of course, Mark and I mention it all the time on the Wekiva broadcast.
3 for John Paul Anderson.
Seminole's not giving us a chance to talk here. They're moving the ball so quickly. Of course, Wekiva matching them. It might not be in their best interest. Hampton doing Windex work, but it's not going to work out in Wekiva's favor. But as I was saying, for Seminole, for Hampton, he's one of those players, he doesn't stand out in any particular area. He's not going to put up 25. He's not going to rip off 18 rebounds or get 12 assists, but he's going to be solid everywhere, and that really trickles down. It falls throughout the entire team. It's a team that pretty much is solid all across the board at any given moment. They can go into any given role, and certainly they could have used some defense there.
Gabriel Sellers for 2.
And now the turnover, and Anderson able to save it. Back out to Sellers. The fadeaway drops the
Gabriel
deuce.
Sellers again.
Seminole with its first lead of the game. 1:05 first quarter. It certainly has been entertaining. Wekiva going out to 10-0 lead. They're coming back with that answer. Slides off the rim. Davis unable to score. And I think I'm convinced that I think Wekiva would be better served to slow down the pace. And I think there's an example of why. Couple of baseball passes. Wekiva get away with one as Anderson doesn't hit the rim. Coming back the other way, Davis, and he can't get the bank to fall. And so with 30.6 seconds of foul, and we
Kerry
get a
Davis
stoppage.
is fouled on the attempt. He'll go to the line and shoot 2. The foul is called against number 30, Anthony Herring, his first, and the team's 4th.
And so 4 baskets that Wekiva normally would have made, including the attempted dunk by Prophet, just letting your emotions get the better of you, trying to match Seminole in this pace that they're setting. And again, Wekiva, this is not really Wekiva's game. Again, they are a team that likes to go on more of the up-tempo side, but compared to Seminole, they're on the slower side.
So 0 for 2 for Kerry Davis, and Seminole keeps their 1-point lead. Nothing there down the baseline for Shackelford. We're going to get a whistle. It's going Wekiva's way.
So with 22 seconds left, Wekiva an opportunity to regain the lead. Last game of day 2, the 2022 Metro versus Florida Challenge. 7 games in total today, as well as the 3 other days. Great job by Davis, slashing along that baseline, drawing contact.
Foul called against number 4, Josiah Shackelford, his second. The team's 5th. Kerry Davis back at the line, shooting 2 more for Wekiva. See if he can do better this time. He was 0 for 2 at the line when he was there a few moments ago.
Yeah, and Wekiva, again, I know I've said it, I believe this is the 3rd time, but I just can't stress it enough. They just really need to take a couple of deep breaths and not worry about what Seminole's doing in that pace. And I think, they probably left 7 or 8 points on the board because they're not focused trying to keep up with that pace, trying to do the spectacular like Seminole. We're tied at 19 all now. Last opportunity in the first quarter, 7 seconds. Back out to McKay. He's stolen. Ball comes out, though, to number 34, Alvarez, who in one motion.
Yeziel Alvarez gets the last word of the first period, and it gives Seminole the narrowest of leads. 21-19 is the score, and what looks like it's going to be a blazing finish to the end of day 2. Seminole leads Wekiva 21-19 after 8 minutes. Back with more from Joe Sterling Gymnasium in just a moment.
And we begin the second quarter. As Mark mentioned, it was a high-rolling, frenetic pace. Wekiva taking a 10-0 lead. Seminole, though, outscoring them 21-9 and taking a 21-19 lead into the second quarter. They do have possession, so they can tie or regain the lead. This is the 2022 Metro versus Florida Challenge. That's Livingston spotting up, can't get the splash. Skying for the rebound is Abia Charles, and his hard work draws a foul. 5 already for Seminole.
Foul is called against number 34, Yeziel Alvarez. That's his first personal foul. The team's 6th. Mustangs will get the ball at the opposing baseline.
So the Metro versus Florida Challenge is very simple. In each of the game, 28 this year, the largest ever. A member of the Metro Conference, as the ball does not drop. That's Isaiah Bannister Doucette, and unable to control it. Great job going up for it and making a touch, but unable to control it. Each member in each of these games, a member of the Metro Conference takes on a non-member at the end of the 28 games, as trying to go for the alley-oop, miscommunication and Profit. Right place, right time. Gives that ball to Charles, and he splashed.
Abia Charles for 3. So Wekiva back in the lead.
22-21. And a foul.
No, it's not either. Wekiva stole the ball but went out of bounds in the process of doing it.
That was Profit.
So if you're being charitable as a statistician, you'll record that as nothing. It was just a deflection. Never possessed the ball in bounds.
Wekiva trying to trap Seminole. So at the end of these 28 games, we add up who wins more games, the Metro Conference or the Florida contingency.
3 for John Paul Anderson.
Back in the lead, 24-22 Seminole.
Both of these teams proving they can do that perimeter shooting as Bannister Doucette lets the ball roll out of bounds. Seminoles ball, and Austin Roll returns to the game for the Mustangs.
And the Metro Conference is made up of all the public high schools in Orange County, 22 now. A West and an East division, 11 on each side. Seminole brings that ball up, looking to take that lead a little bit larger, and they do.
Swish for John Paul Anderson.
Largest lead of the game now for Seminole at 26-22. 2 possessions. Wide open underneath. Austin Rawl The Jones transfer goes bank.
Austin Roll for 2.
So we talked about Robinson transferring, but Rahl also an important transfer as well. Fits in real well with those returning players from last season. Again, that went 17 and 11. Partially tipped, gives Seminole credit. They get it back. Anderson launches, slides off that rim, a slow rebound, and number 33 over to Charles, going for 2 in a row.
Aya Charles on the pass from Livingston for 3.
So now Wekiva finding the groove as they go back into the lead 27-26.
Kickball, still Seminoles ball.
And this is what I'm talking about, Mark. They are moving that ball up and down. It is the priority. They're not walking it, but they're not moving it, trying to move the ball quite as fast as they were during that first quarter when Seminole went on that run and took the lead. Very few teams, and this is the same thing we talked about with Oak Ridge against Mainland in the last game. Very few teams can compete with Seminole in terms of how quickly they get that ball up and down the court. The spin by
Bannister had to bump him in order to keep him from going up, and he's going to get called. Isaiah Bannister Doucette is called on his first personal foul. It's the team's third, and that will send Yasiel Alvarez to the line shooting 2.
And so like a boxing match, Mark, I think we've seen both these teams come out, throw their best flurry of punches, make a statement, and now it's time to settle down. And to quote Darrell Waltrip for you NASCAR fans, Hall of Fame 3-time champion, buckle up because it's going to be a Donnybrook.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Neil, you and I are, of course, the house announcers for Wekiva, but nevertheless, if you're just an objective observer of high school basketball, this is just a really fun game to watch. Checking into the game for the Mustangs, Malachi Hampton and KJ Robinson.
So 5:19, second quarter, 28-26 lead for Seminole. And by the way, as I mentioned at the end of this 4-day extravaganza, 28 games, we add up who wins more, the Metro Conference or Florida. Metro right now has won 4 of the 6 games today. They lost the first 2 and won 4 in a row. So Seminole brings it in. Defensive back effort, but it's not going to come to fruition. Hampton taking the dive. Loose ball picked up by Sellers, leads the attack, and now Wekiva gets the turnover. Rahl picking up the air and pass. Give and go between Charles and Rahl, and we'll go to the line. Rahl putting his body in danger, but getting the foul.
Gabriel Sellers called on the block. It's his second, the team's 7th. It sends Austin Roll to the line, shooting 2 for the Mustangs.
So opportunity for Wekiva to tie the ball game up again. I don't believe we have had a tie in this game yet, Mark. Nope. One tie at 19 all. We've had several changes, but only one tie. And so that'll get us 1 point closer. Neil Fisher, Mark Barchi, thank you for joining us on the Varsity Sports Network. Of course, as we mentioned, we are the in-house broadcasting on-air talent team for Wekiva, just 5 miles down the road. 2 schools in the city of Apopka. Apopka located about 22 miles northwest of downtown Orlando. Apopka on the northwest side, about a mile from the Lake County border. Wekiva on the southeast side, touching 429. And we have some debate over the score right now.
Yeah, just you saw the scoreboard change there at the bottom of your screen. I think it's a case of pushing the wrong button. So 28-27 does match the book now. As
Rowe steps back up, opportunity to tie this game, and success. The senior getting the job done. We're tied at 28 all.
No, Neil, we already had the lead, so now it's 29-27.
Oh, 29.
That was that scoring correction. There comes Alvarez, doesn't have an option. He'll go back out to the top of the arc. Trade does not fall for Shackelford, but Anderson really in the rebound. Back to the paint. Too hot off the glass.
Beautiful give and go for Seminole, but give Wekiva great credit on the recovery defense, closing that lane down very quickly.
Held ball, possession, Seminoles.
4.5 minutes remaining. Second quarter. In down to Alvarez along the baseline, one-on-one with Hampton. Contact, and Hampton draws the foul.
Player control foul is called against number 34, Yesiel Alvarez, his second, the team's 8th. Charge drawn there by Malachi Hampton. No bonus shots on offensive fouls, but it turns the ball over to the Mustangs.
Seminole going to a 1-2-2 full court trap. Wekiva breaks it with very little effort, but now it affects them with the travel and the other end. And so even though they didn't outscore, Mark, as I said, Hampton is pretty much the leader of this team. He's the guy who stands out in terms of nothing great, nothing spectacular, but solid all the way around. And now Robinson picks up that loose ball, swipes it, Rawl rips the rebound down, doing the Windex work. And there again, you see it, Hampton's not the only one that can fill in any role at any given time.
Foul called against Tyreek Lewis, his first, the team's 9th. And this will be Austin Roll shooting 2.
So Roll now already with 6 free throw attempts when this series ends.
Picks up his 3rd point there. Two for 2.
And that ups the lead to 31-27, a 2-possession lead in the final game of Day 2, the 2022 Metro versus Florida Challenge. No hesitation from Ross. Picked up the loose ball. Anderson, Seminole going back to work. They keep up that frenetic passing pace. And they'll get that 3rd opportunity and 3 times the charm.
Put back by Daquan Ross, and we'll pause for a Mustang timeout.
And so
Full timeout called by Wekiva.
A defensive breakdown by Wekiva covered that right side, but nobody on the left side, and Ross picked up the loose ball. 31-29, 3:48 before halftime. The 2022 Metro versus Florida Challenge, Varsity Sports Network. Wekiva holding on to a 31-29 lead in the final game of the second day, the Metro versus Florida Challenge. Wekiva representing the Metro Conference, about 5 miles up the road from Joe Sterling's Gymnasium where this event is held. The 31-29 over Seminole. And now they go back to work. And that's Robinson. Makes the withdrawal from the bank.
KJ Robinson.
Back up to 2 possessions as Seminole crosses midcourt. And, of course, this is the first game for both these teams, regular season. And some good defensive work there, creating that travel. Wekiva using that far sideline as their friend. And now Robinson, the point guard, will walk the ball up. And I believe this is the first time we've actually seen Robinson walk that ball up. They pick up the pace, though, very quickly. Still no open shot. Seminole getting back quickly on the reversal. Robinson trying to use the pick by Rawl. And he's left open for the 10-footer. No drop. And doing some nice finger work is Lewis. Possession will remain with Seminole as we drop under 3 minutes. Of course, Mark, we've talked about both these teams where they are in terms of coming into the season. Wekiva looking to go past its regional semifinal appearance in the 17-11 record last year as they create the turnover.
Traveling. Mustangs ball, checking into the game for the Mustangs, Isaiah Bannister-Doucette.
And Seminole being as, I guess you could say, as successful as you can without actually winning the state championship. 2 years ago going to the state final, last year going to the semifinals. But this is the opening game of the regular season. And to quote Chris Berman, the Swami, as no dice from Livingston. one of the players that Wekiva needs to hit those outside shots. At the other end, score the deuce, going
John
bang.
Paul Anderson.
You want to get off the schneid, get some momentum heading into your second and third games. Obviously, one game, not the end of the world, but certainly just feels a lot better to get that first victory in your first attempt as opposed to doing it in your second or third attempt.
Vophcy Prophete back in for Wekiva. Darius Livingston will get a break.
So Wekiva, when they're at their best, they are an excellent shooting team, and that obviously not the case. Prophete, though, doing Windex work. And now Robinson sets up, extended right, going against Anderson. A whistle.
Carrying.
And
Seminoles ball.
And that is a first game mistake.
Yeah, and I heard Coach Lubin out of my left ear telling the official, good call. And you know that it was right when the team, when the coach who was called against agrees with the official. It must have been obvious.
So both these teams coming into this game winning a couple of preseason classic games. And there's another first game mistake. A little bit low, actually quite a bit low at the knees.
Yeah, Butterfingers there. And now the Seminoles take over on the turnover at their own baseline, down by 2 with $1:43 remaining in the half. And now we're going to get a foul. Mustangs foul called against Vophcy Prophete on the push, his second, the team's third.
And as you just heard Mark say, he's also the public address announcer for this event, as well as at Wekiva High School. 4 fouls, team fouls on Wekiva.
3 total.
Three total.
Yeah, so Wekiva's been keeping their noses pretty clean. Vophcy Prophete actually has 2 out of those 3.
Yeah, but Seminole does have 9, so keep that in mind. Next foul will be a double bonus for Wekiva, and we still have 94 seconds, 1:34.
5 seconds under guard, Mustangs ball. So statistically, Isaiah Bannister gets credit for a steal for that. And we're going to get a substitution here as Gabriel Sellers returns to the game for Seminole.
And as you would expect, coaches talk about it over and over again. Both these teams, very successful last year, defense keying the offense. No rebound, 2 shots, Prophete misses as well as Hampton. And now Prophete, just as I was speaking of defense, gets his hand on there. And Seminole gets the ball back, but I think that really did affect the shot in terms of the pacing and timing. So Seminole certainly a strong rebounding team. We've seen that on almost every possession. They've gone multiple, I'd say at least 12 possessions with at least 2 field goal attempts. Wekiva, on the other hand, doing a good job on defense, creating those turnovers as Charles tries to go bank. Won't get any luck on that. Anderson brings the ball up now, 40 seconds remaining, looking to tie. Can't get the ball to drop. Bannister rips off that tipped rebound. Couple of passes over to Prophete, open on the right wing. Junior can't get the tray to drop.
And we're going to get a loose ball foul as the ball was in the air. Malachi Hampton is called on the push. That's his first personal foul, the team's 4th.
Quick inbound, and Seminole up the court right away again, very quickly. Sellers launches, and
3
splash.
for Gabriel Sellers. And that's a go-ahead basket as the Seminoles take the lead for the first time in a while.
About 4 minutes. At the other end, Charles tries to answer. The long outlet pass, a little too much outlet. Sellers trying to save it. Would have been better served letting it go. And there's why, as Prophete drains the ring.
Prophete at the buzzer for 3. And the Mustangs take the lead. Going into the locker room.
So fireworks in the last 30 seconds, and pretty much it epitomizes that first half. A couple of heavyweights came out throwing their best punches, and when all said and done, again, to quote Darrell Waltrip, the 3-time NASCAR champion, buckle up for that second half. It's going to be a Donnybrook. This is the final game, Game 2 of the 2022 Earl Graham Metro versus Florida Challenge. A pair of teams that went to the playoffs last year looking to open the season with a victory on the Varsity Sports Network. 16 minutes remaining in the final game, Day 2 of the Metro versus Florida Challenge, dedicated to Earl Graham. And Wekiva representing the Metro Conference on Vophcy Prophet's three-point swish as the time ran out in the first half, have a 36-34 lead over the Seminole, representing the Florida contingency. I'm Neil Fisher. Mark Barchi, my partner and public address announcer. Joe A. Sterling Gymnasium on the campus of Apopka High School, the site. And we continue to rain threes. That time, Darius Livingston. So now a 39-34 score for Wekiva. Certainly can't get off to a better start than that. Rebound by Seminole. Over to Anderson. And again, Wekiva continues to pick up the rebounding, at least in the first few seconds of the second half. This tray will not drop for Livingston. And Shackelford leads the charge. Now back to Sellers. His tray doesn't drop, gets his own rebound though, crashing the boards. Give and go. Sellers again can't get the second attempt to drop either. And a whistle. 39-34, a minute into the third quarter. Wekiva with the lead in possession.
Foul called against Seminoles number 2, Gabriel Sellers, his third, the first of this half for Seminole.
And so buckle up, folks. Now that we actually got a break, you just saw why. As Darrell Waltrip, the three-time NASCAR champion, would say, we're going to get physical, and we're going to see a lot of bumping and grinding in the second half. No dice. And pulling down that rebound was Alvarez. Both these teams came out like a heavyweight championship bout. As Alvarez tracks down that rebound, threw their best punches. A flurry opened up, made a statement. A third opportunity, and this one finally drops. Anderson with the deuce.
John Paul Anderson opens up second half scoring for Seminole.
Popka opening up a 10-2 lead. Seminole answering with a 10-0 run and a 21-19 lead at the end of the first half. And then Wekiva answering, as I said, a three-pointer from
Isaiah Bannister is fouled on the attempt. He'll go to the line and shoot two. The foul is called against Tyreek Lewis, his second, the team's second.
Prophet draining a tray as the buzzer sounded to put Wekiva at 36-34 heading into halftime. Now a 40-36 lead as Bannister Doucette drops the first of two free throws. Your leading scorers, actually Seminole above all, that's Anderson with 10. And then Wekiva being paced by Prophet along with Malachi Hampton, 8 apiece. A 41-36 lead now as Doucette drops a pair of free throws. The Metro Conference winning 4 of the 6 games today. Everybody hits the deck there in the area, namely Hampton and Ross. Jump ball call. Possession will remain with Seminole. I'm Neil Fisher, along with Mark Barchi. Thank you for joining us on this night before Thanksgiving. Hope everyone does have a great holiday. That's Hampton swiping it away, and Anderson answering with a swipe of his own. And before we go anywhere, the foul. Bannister Doucette.
Isaiah Bannister is called on his second personal foul, the team's first of this half.
So both these teams won a pair of preseason contests as Anderson launches. Skying for the rebound. Among all kinds of traffic is Prophet. A whistle and a foul. Coach Wynn disagrees. He thinks it was traveling. But the refs have made their statement. It's a foul.
Foul called against number 34. That's Yasiel Alvarez, his third personal, the team's third of this half.
Now both these teams want to start the season on a winning note, get some momentum, get that first victory out of the way. As Seminole going to a full court trap, actually a three-quarters trap. And they'll commit another foul. So Seminole does
foul called against number 1, John Paul Anderson, his second, the team's fourth.
So Seminole running the high-octane pace, but they do commit quite a bit of fouls in exchange. Down low to Hampton, swings it around and makes the withdrawal from the bank. Hampton giving Wekiva the 43-37 lead. And now Wekiva doubling up in the half-court set. Fortunately, that leaves Alvarez open. Nice recovery defense. And good job getting the hands in there. Several hands touching that ball. The last was Livingston knocking it out of bounds. That'll slow down the Seminole offense. Again, very high octane. Seen that from a couple of teams today. As Alvarez slides in, and actually that was Lewis, and that cuts the lead to 43-38. Wekiva opening up on a 7-0 run. Back the other way we go. Anderson can't get the ball to fall. Angle cut off, but doing the Windex work and drawing the foul. Lewis will go to the line for a pair of... No. It will be a non-shooting foul. 4:21 in the second quarter. Now 4 in a row from Seminole. That
Daquan
deuce
Ross
coming off
adds 2.
Ross. 43-40. So Wekiva opening up with a 7-1 run. Now Seminole answering with 4. Charles gets his third tray of the game. Left wing.
Adia Charles for 3.
So Charles with 6 points, a pair of threes in that first half. And what was important about him was the timing. They came when they really stunted a potential run for Seminole. And that, again, was the case when he just dropped that last tray.
Team control foul is called against Tyreek Lewis, his third, the team's 5th.
And so as you heard Mark say, 5 fouls already for Seminole. They went double bonus about midway through the second quarter in the first half. Prophet down low now, out to Livingston. Hampton along the baseline, slides up, and goes bang.
Malachi Hampton from Darius Livingston.
48-40, and you're starting to feel some momentum being built now by Wekiva with that 8-point lead. Again, they had a 10-2 lead in that first half, matching that lead now in the second half. And there's some quick hands, getting those hands in the way.
Timeout. Seminole, 30-second timeout.
And so give Hampton credit. Good sportsmanship helped up the Seminole player. But in the meantime, Wekiva answers Seminoles' attempt to get back into the game to take the lead. 4 consecutive points and now an 8-point lead. 48-40, 3:19 third quarter from Joe A. Sterling Gymnasium, Apopka High School. Seminole with some work to do, trailing by 8 as we come back to live action. 3:19 remaining, 48-40 deficit against Apopka, representing the Metro Conference. And didn't see this a lot in the first half, that slower pace. Wekiva, though, taking a page out of Seminole, sliding in and transitioning into a deuce.
Vophcy Prophete on the Mustang layup.
Largest lead of the game now for Wekiva, 50-40, under 3 minutes, third quarter. The tray put up by Pittman, no dice, battle out to the right. And a foul. Robinson
foul called
drawing
against number 30, Anthony Herring. That's his second personal foul, the team's 6th. So that means the Mustangs will enjoy bonus for the rest of the game, but we're going to get a hold on the inbound.
Wekiva on a 7-0 run.
Foul called against number 1, John Paul Anderson, his second, the team's 7th, and now that puts the Mustangs into bonus. At the line shooting 1-1 is number 3, KJ Robinson. But first, checking in for the Seminoles, number 12, Trevon Dixon.
And, of course, we talked about Robinson, the transfer from Apopka, played here last year. Just fitting in so well, not just personality-wise, but his skill set. And, of course, he couldn't have come at a better time with the graduation of Jamaric Hammond, the 4-year starter at point guard for Wekiva. And also mention Austin Rawl, who is in the game now. He has progressively seen more time, albeit only 2.5 games, but certainly he's making his mark felt. Transfer from Jones, 52-40 now after the 2 free throws from Robinson. Largest lead of the game for Wekiva. Seminole trying to answer. No dice for Anderson. Scrap underneath. Robinson picks up the ball out of the air. He's going to go coast to coast with the attempt. Can't get it to drop. Snagging the rebound. Schofield doesn't have it for very long. Hampton at the other end. An emphatic slam.
Malachi Hampton steals a slam dunk for the Mustangs.
14-point lead. And Wekiva, boy, the momentum has built into a firestorm from the Seminole perception. 3 turnovers in the last 4 possessions.
And you see the joy on Malachi Hampton's face. Yeah, I know, I just did a foul. I don't care. Malachi Hampton is called on the foul. That's going to be his 3rd. The team's 3rd. He's on cloud 9, though. So he's having a day.
So Wekiva went 17-11 last year, made it to the regional semifinal. That's a round of 16. Lost to Winter Haven by 20-plus points. To be honest, they got ran out of the building on the road before the game was even a minute old. As Wekiva will take possession. But it really was a season, despite that ending, it was really a very satisfying ending for Wekiva. A tale of 2 seasons. They started off 3-6. At the center of that was Malachi Hampton, missing all 9 of those games due to a wrist injury. And obviously, they turned it around when he returned, going 14-5. But to be honest, of course, Mark Barchi, that's my partner. I'm Neil Fisher. We're the in-house team at Wekiva. So we've now seen Wekiva play for 2.5 games, and they certainly a much different start this season, not just in terms of the tangible, getting away with 2 victories and now the 15-point lead on Seminole. A state finalist 2 years ago, a state semifinalist last year, but just the quality of play, the confidence, the body language, just looking so much different than a year ago at this time.
Absolutely, Neil, and we've seen it manifest over those 2 games of the preseason classic and now here in their first official regular season game that'll actually count on the record. And certainly if the game finishes out the way that it's been going for the first 2.5 quarters, things look very good.
56-40. Wekiva, I believe, 4 straight possessions now. They have taken their largest lead of the game and currently at 16 points. So certainly a comfortable lead. You're in a position where it's your game to win if you're Wekiva. And now the double team coming left. And they left Alvarez open. Give him credit. Takes advantage. Drops the deuce. But still a 14-point lead. Wekiva getting that ball up from the corner. Rattles out. And a foul on Alvarez. Foul
drawn by
Alvarez. Draws the foul. Strong rebound.
Isaiah Bannister-Doucette called on the push. It's his 3rd, the team's 4th. Albeit Charles back in for Wekiva.
And the difference between the halves, Mark, I would say, is, again, Seminole fell behind 10-2. They wound up taking a 21-19 lead at the end of the first half. And they just dictated the terms of this game, a high pace, high octane, not just in terms of getting the ball up and down, but they shot quick. The passes were coming out quick. The ball was being moved with some force on those passes, and Wekiva was trying to match them. Wekiva took a couple deep breaths about midway through the second quarter, and that's when the game started to change in that tone.
Fouls called against number 14, Tyreek Lewis, his fourth, team's ninth. KJ Robinson shooting 2.
And so you can see it now. Not only has Wekiva slowed down, and again, Wekiva plays on the faster side as far as the tempo, but compared to what Seminole was doing for about those 5 minutes in that first quarter, they were slow, and they have slowed down, and so has Seminole. Again, Wekiva, perhaps not, I wouldn't classify this game as a physical game in terms of it being the story of the game, but Wekiva certainly has become more physical since midway through that second quarter, despite that deuce there by Alvarez.
Yes, Alvarez in transition.
So Seminole cutting the lead to 13 points, under a minute in the third quarter. Wekiva now again slowing the pace down, in no rush to take a shot. Livingston tracks that ball down, gives Sellers credit for getting a hand, but again, Wekiva in a position where they can trade possession and points. They don't need to shoot with that 13-point lead. And
traveling, Seminoles ball.
So now if you're Wekiva, though, you didn't necessarily need to score in terms of keeping control of the game and to dictate the pace and the tempo and the terms, but you certainly don't want Seminole to get some momentum heading into the fourth quarter. And that's exactly what they do. They prevent a basket as Alvarez turns the ball over. And a timeout.
Mustangs. 30-second timeout called by Wekiva.
So Wekiva does what it needs to do. They hold Seminole off the board, some nasty defense along the baseline. They maintain the 57-44 lead, again in a comfortable position with 18 seconds remaining in the third quarter from Joe A. Sterling Gymnasium on Apopka High School. About 150 fans in attendance for as we close out day 2 of the 2022 Earl Graham Metro vs. Florida Challenge. 15 seconds, Wekiva 13-point lead, and that's Livingston looking to take some momentum into the fourth quarter. Prophete back out to Livingston. The launch, short, clanks off the rim. Seminole one last opportunity, and Wekiva does not score, but give them credit. They did not allow Seminole to get a shot. So again, Wekiva has completely turned this game around since midway through that second quarter and now hold a 57-44 lead heading into the third quarter on the Varsity Sports Network. We'll be back with the fourth quarter. So towards the end of that third quarter, an 8-0 run by Wekiva. They had the lead by multiple possessions. 36-34 at halftime, got it up to 3, and that really put them in control of this game. Again, in a position, this is their game to win.
That's Charles' first personal foul, the team's fifth.
57-44 as Shackelford steps to the line. Day 2 of the 2022 Earl Graham Metro vs. Florida Challenge. And now the lead down to 11.
Yeah, this one is not over yet, to be sure. I mean, Wekiva is definitely the Vegas odds favorite here. However, Seminole is by no means out of it. Leesburg and Seminole have the same colors.
Yeah, a 16-point lead has been taken down to 11 by Seminole. Charles lowers that shoulder.
It's Charles with a spin move for 2.
And those were important points because, as Mark just mentioned, you could feel Seminole starting to build some momentum. And Wekiva has done that all game. They have now allowed Seminole, since that run in the first half, to put together more than 3 consecutive baskets. And again, it does not mean that this game is over by any means, but leading by 13 is a much more comfortable position than being down by the 13. Playing from ahead is always easier.
Austin Roll called in his first personal foul, the team's 6th.
The fadeaway from Ross, no dice, and clearing the boards. Great rebounding by Wekiva. They continue to pound those boards. Great interior defense to spin away. Air ball, ill-advised shot by Rahl. And so now Seminole trying to cut into that 13-point lead. Almost losing the ball was Anderson. That does not hurt Wekiva, though. They come back the other way, picking their spot for the transition. And did the basket count? No basket, but we will get free throws.
Foul called against number 1, John Paul Anderson, his third personal foul. At the line shooting 2, Darius Livingston.
So Livingston, the 6' 1" sophomore guard who was on the team last year as a freshman, opportunity to get the lead up to 15, and does not get their first free throw. 6.5 remaining. This is the Metro versus Florida Challenge. Tune in tomorrow. We thank you for tuning in today. As neither free throw goes, opportunity goes by the wayside for Wekiva. On Friday, 7 games. Wekiva continues to play great perimeter defense. Seminole cooling off from beyond the arc since that run in the first period. And the ref immediately blew his whistle when the ball was stolen by Pittman.
No basket. Vophcy Prophete takes the charge. Foul is called against number 3, Daquan Ross, his first. No bonus shots for offensive fouls, but it does turn the ball over to the Mustangs.
So as you just heard Mark say, no bonus shots. That's because 10 fouls have been committed by Seminole. Now Wekiva again, opportunity to really enforce control of this game, open up a bigger gap. 13 points is comfortable, but not certainly a done deal yet in terms of securing victory. And they've had a couple of opportunities to take a major step, Wekiva that is, and did not.
Push is called against Darius Livingston. That's his first personal foul. The team's 7th, and it will send Jordan Pittman to the line, shoot 1-on-1 bonus.
So 28 games in total over 4 days, 2 more Friday and then Saturday. In each game, a member of the Metro Conference takes on a non-member known as the Florida Contingency, thus the name Metro versus Florida Challenge. And every high school, public high school in Orange County is a member of the Metro Conference, 22 in total. The conference has grown by about a third in the last 15 years.
Yeah, certainly Horizon and Lake Buena Vista, the latest 2 entries. They are in their second year of their respective programs, and I believe we've got one in the works for Southeast Orange County that should be opening no later than 2025, although there's a possibility they may accelerate that.
In the meantime, Seminole trying to whittle away at that 13-point lead, 12-point lead. So not any inroads there as Wekiva continues to really throw him out of sync in timing.
Foul called against number 30, Anthony Herring. That's his third personal. The Mustangs continue into double bonus. KJ Robinson will shoot 2.
And looking back at this game, again, Wekiva opened up with a 10-2 run. Seminole answered with a 10-0 run. And they took a 21-19 lead at the end of the first quarter. But since about midway through the second quarter, it's been really Wekiva in terms of dictating the feel, the direction this game has taken, the terms by which the game is played. And I wouldn't really say that physical is the top story, but they have played much more physical, as there was a scoop shot and score it.
Josiah Shackelford adds 2 for the Seminoles.
Lead down to 11 again. But
again,
Wekiva,
as we started to say, this game's certainly not over, and if Shackelford can convert here, and he does, as Josiah Shackelford steals 2 to cut the lead under 10. So now a 9-point game, and Neil, again, this is still winnable for Seminole, but if they're just going to trade baskets back and forth, the clock is going to eventually start to favor Wekiva.
Yeah, Wekiva, again, is in the position. This is their game to win, and that includes trading buckets. Of course, there's your answer as Robinson. Robertson slashing through the lane, and that gets the lead back up to 11 with 5 minutes remaining.
Yeah, as we said, Wekiva can afford to trade basket for basket. Seminole, on the other hand, is going to have to start making some more aggressive, riskier plays because they've got to get some unanswered points, and they've got to get them real soon.
Well,
now.
the big thing is they need to come up with stops.
Josiah Shackelford is fouled behind the arc. He'll go to the line and shoot 3. The foul is called against Abia Charles, his second, and the team's 8th.
And so, to close out my thought about Wekiva picking up his physical play, again, I wouldn't say that's the top story, but certainly much more physical since midway through that second quarter. And you just get the feeling that pickup in the physical play has really affected the timing and the rhythm of Seminole. They've had some good shots. They've taken some bad shots too, but you just never really feel like they're taking it. You just feel like Seminoles rushed whenever they take a shot. Lead now down to 10.
So 1 out of 3, but the offensive rebound.
So the good news for Wekiva, as that does not go, is even though Seminole got the rebound, that does take a few more seconds off the clock.
Hampton scoring the rebound there. 10-point ball game, 4:30 to go.
So Wekiva now, probably at that time of the game, you might want to start thinking about taking some time off. And certainly best result there was Robinson on the scoop shot.
KJ Robinson.
12-point lead again. And so Wekiva went on an 8-1 run midway through that third quarter, extending a 2-point lead up to 10.
Second chance basket there by Anthony Herring.
And the lead as big as 16. Since then, the two teams have really traded baskets, albeit not possession for possession. Neither team has really scored more than 4 points in a row. Hampton, body control in the finger roll.
Malachi Hampton.
So lead back up to 12. Lead has gone between 8 and 12. Again, neither team, since midway in the third quarter, has scored more than 4 points in a row.
And now finally, Prophet's going to get a little too aggressive.
Wekiva opening up a 6-point lead. Seminole cutting it back to 12.
Vophcy Prophete is called on his third personal foul. It's the team's 9th. Seminole continues into bonus. Shooting 1-on-1 is number 3, Daquan Ross.
Both teams in double bonus from here on out. The 3:26 mark.
Hits the first.
And mentioned it in the first half, Seminoles are without 3 of their players in the main rotation plus 2 football players. So I'm sure as the season goes on, of course the football players will return next week. You'll see a much more different Seminole team. But for now, Wekiva in position. This is their game to lose, their game to win.
And there Wekiva gets called for traveling. Seminoles ball.
Wekiva is in the position. It's their game to win and Seminoles to lose. And again, even though there's a turnover, that does take some more time off the clock. 3:09 remaining. And for the most part, Wekiva has matched Seminole since opening up that 16-point lead. Far from the sensational performance, in particular the field goal percentage during the preseason classic. Wekiva shooting 60% for both those games combined. But again, Seminole posing a much more difficult challenge, and Wekiva has made up that percentage in other areas. There being one of them on the defensive end, taking a number of charges.
Foul is called against number 2, Gabriel Sellers, on the player control foul. That's his 4th. Charge taken there by Vophcy Prophete, and no bonus shots for offensive fouls, but it turns the ball over to Wekiva.
So Seminole going to a full court trap. Wekiva breaks it with ease. Down that baseline, Prophete goes high and makes the withdrawal from the bank.
Vophcy Prophete adds 2 for the Mustangs.
Lead back up to 12. 2:40 remaining. Great ball movement for Wekiva. Anderson trying to get that high handle and draws the foul.
Foul is called against number 21, Vophcy Prophete. That's his 4th personal, the team's 10th. And the Seminoles will go to the free throw line. John Paul Anderson shooting 2.
So 12-point lead for Wekiva, 2:34 remaining. Last game of day 2 of the Metro versus Florida Challenge. Dedicated to Earl Graham. And just also want to take a quick moment, if you're not familiar with high school basketball, first, stick around after the game because we do award the MVP. It is named after Earl Graham. Coach Graham was an assistant coach for 40-plus years. And if you follow high school basketball, you know the name, you know the face. He spent his last 15 years working as the right-hand man of Coach Scott Williams, the head coach here at Apopka, as well as the director of this event. Spent 7 years at Wekiva and then moved to Apopka.
Full timeout is called by Seminole.
And Coach Graham went with Coach Williams. Coach Graham, just really one of those coaches who was never front and center, never really got the attention first and foremost, but any coach with success, and of course Coach Williams, now with over 400 victories, you can't have that success not only as a coach but as a team without Coach Graham. He was the guy who would work with players at 5, 6 in the morning, open up the gym. He also did all the organizational and logistical stuff that coaches needed. And fortunately, he passed away due to COVID in January of 2020, almost 3 years ago. And, of course, for Mark and I, since we are the in-house team at Wekiva, of course, everybody feels his loss, but just on a personal note, we certainly miss him very much because he was part of the original staff at Wekiva.
Absolutely, Neil. We all knew him well, and, of course, I remember one of his responsibilities at the Metro versus Florida Challenge was always to guard the hospitality room for the coaches and officials, which was a little bit like asking the fox to guard the hen house, but we gave him a hard time for it, and certainly a lot of love for him at Apopka, Lake Highland Prep, and really everywhere that he coached.
Yeah, and also want to point out, as the tray does not drop, Prophet tips it around, Seminole comes down with it, but Wekiva under Coach Williams scored the deuce.
It's Tyreek Lewis for 2.
Going bank. Made the playoffs in their 3rd season. They went 19-10, and that's much quicker than most teams take in order to get that record of 19-10 as well as the playoffs. And Coach Graham had a very strong hand in accomplishing that success. And of course, like I mentioned, he did all the behind-the-scenes stuff that you need from a coach. So anyway, stick around. In a minute 50 playing time, we will announce the MVP, named after Coach Graham.
Foul is called against number 30, Anthony Herring. That's his 4th personal foul. At the line shooting is Malachi Hampton.
And, of course, that will close out day 2 of the 2022 Metro versus Florida Challenge as Malachi Hampton drops the first free throw, now up to 9 points. Of course, not quite as large as it was for most of this 4th quarter. It was in double digits. But again, Wekiva in a position, they don't necessarily need to score. They just need to come up with some stops and take some time off the clock.
Speaking of which, Neil, just that for you.
Situational basketball being executed. And now Robinson, stop and go move. Find Hampton.
KJ Robinson to Malachi Hampton.
And there's some great situational basketball. Taking your time, waiting for the opening. Hampton, again, finding the right place, right time. Soft touch, and now the lead back up to 11. With a minute 10 remaining, Seminoles got to make something happen. No foul. Robinson doing a bit of an acting job. 1 minute remaining in this final game, day 2, 2022 Metro versus Florida Challenge. Loose ball, Livingston picks it up. Contact. Anderson trying to get to the ball, could not stop his momentum and ran over the back of Livingston. And Livingston will go to the free throw line with that 11-point lead. So barring an unbelievable comeback,
John Paul Anderson called with his 5th personal foul. He retires from the game with 14 points for Seminole. At the line shooting for the Mustangs, number 1, Darius Livingston.
So barring an unbelievable comeback, one for the ages involving this event, now a 12-point lead with 53 seconds left. The Metro Conference will take 5 of 7 games today, as Hampton gets the Windex work and a nice touch.
Malachi Hampton on the putback.
So 40 seconds now. Seminole trying to cut that lead, at least get out of here with an under 10 deficit. And that's not going to happen. Prophete brings it down, draws the foul. Nope. No foul. He actually just stepped out of bounds. So the summary of this game, again, it'll be the 5th victory for the Metro Conference in 7 games. Wekiva opened up with a 10-2 lead, certainly looking like the team that won 2 games in their preseason classic by at least 35 points. Seminole came back on a 10-0 run, took a 21-19 lead at the end of the first quarter, and they went back and forth through the first half of the second quarter. Wekiva taking the lead.
Held ball, possession Mustangs.
Taking the lead midway through the second quarter on a double-digit run, and to use the old cliche, they never look back, lead as many as 16, and since midway in the fourth quarter, the lead has gone back between 8 and 12 points. Of course, it'll be a little bit larger, now up to 14, and really the difference was Wekiva slowed down its pace. They were trying to keep up with a frenetic, high-octane pace set by Seminole, and when they stopped doing that, they got more physical and threw Seminole's timing in rhythm off. Your final score, as Wekiva wins its opener, 76-60. And Mark, it's time for you to conclude the second day. Take us home for this game, and again, let us know who wins the Earl Graham Most Valuable Player from Apopka High School, Joe Sterling Gymnasium.
That takes us to the end of the ball game and the end of day 2 here at the 12th annual Earl Graham Metro versus Florida Challenge. Final score 76-60 as Wekiva notches one more for the Orlando Metro Conference. And before we conclude our game today, we have just a little bit of hardware to hand out. Coach Earl Graham influenced the lives of thousands of young men over his 40-plus years as a coach in Central Florida. For 15 years, Coach Graham worked as an assistant coach alongside head coach Scott Williams, the last 7 of which were at Apopka. The Metro versus Florida Challenge honors the legacy of Coach Graham by awarding our game's most valuable player with a plaque in Earl's name and image. And it should come as no surprise that this one goes to the top scoring player from today's game with 23 points for the Mustangs, being all over the ball all day long. It's the Davis and Elkins commit, the 6'6" forward, Malachi Hampton. Once again, we'd like to thank everyone for coming out to support your Mustang and Seminole athletes, and for those of you who've been joining us all day long, whether you are here in person at Joe Sterling Gymnasium or whether you are watching us on Varsity Sports Network. There's Malachi Hampton there to pick up his Earl Graham MVP award for Game 14. Again, we thank everyone for joining us here at Joe Sterling Gymnasium. We thank those of you who are watching us on varsitysportsnetwork.org. We're going to be back here at Apopka High School for 14 more games, 7 on Friday and 7 more on Saturday, and we hope that you will join us for those as well. We'll be back on varsitysportsnetwork.org. We'll also be back here in person at Joe Sterling Gymnasium. Until then, we hope you have a safe and happy Thanksgiving with your loved ones. Good night from Joe Sterling Gymnasium here in Apopka.